Starbase 514 lost contact with the research vessel Vico. Geordie LaForge was caught in a fire when he was about 5 years old, and Lieutenant Commander Data didn't realize his head movements were distracting. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 5, Episode 11, entitled Hero Worship. Story by Hilary Badar, teleplay by Joe Manosky, directed by what? Sir Patrick Stewart. This was January 25th, 1992. There's more on that in a second. Where were you? How you doing today, Sirach?
I'm doing all right. January 5th, 1992?
January 25th, 1992.
Oh, 25th. I was about to say the last one was on the 4th.
Yeah. So, everybody, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications if you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate it. Please visit us on patreon.com/the7th-rule to support and get all kinds of goodies from us. You'll be glad you did. Yeah, January 25th, 1992. By the way, it's a beautiful day here in LA, but we had an earthquake just a few minutes ago. That was kind of interesting. It was a little quickie, no big deal. Okay, so 3 weeks in between the episodes rather than 1 week, and that's fine because of the holidays and all that. But I remembered last week we were talking about the episode 9 was in November. Episode 10 was at the beginning of January. Yeah. And then there's 3 weeks. So they had 6 weeks in between 9 and 10, 3 weeks in between 10 and 11. Like, what a strange...
That's weird.
It really is. I've never seen that before.
That is super duper weird. I don't know if that's just because they schedule, like they have the release dates that way, or if I don't know if the filming dates were like that.
I feel
maybe the release dates were like that, but I just can't see them filming. I can't see them coming back from 6 weeks, filming 1 week, and then going back for 3 weeks.
Yeah, it feels like it was some kind of, I don't want to say a mistake, but that it wasn't planned. They were forced into this. Like maybe, you know, the first 6 weeks was planned. But then afterwards, when they got back, there were delays, and they're like, okay, well, we'll drop one episode, and then because, yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Episode 9, November 16th. Episode 10, January 4th. Episode 11, January 25th. Which is just weird to have that one episode in an island by itself, you know?
Those are the release dates, though? Those are the days they were released, right?
They aired, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still guessing that the release dates were separated, were not consistent with the film dates.
Oh, totally.
So there may have definitely been a break of 6 weeks, and perhaps, for example, and I'm just going to give an example out there. Let's say that the first the episode 10 was supposed to come out on January 4th, like it was, and then this episode 11 was supposed to come out a week later on January 11th.
That's my guess, right? Too. Yeah, and then some kind of delay in post-production or something like that.
Yeah, but there could be other delays besides post-production that I'm guessing that possible. Like, for example, an earthquake happens in San Francisco that, some kind of major event, like the OJ trial or something that takes everybody's attention away from whatever.
If you want ratings, don't go on at the same time as the OJ trial, let me tell you.
Exactly. I mean, everybody's watching the OJ trial. They're not watching anything else. So I'm imagining that something like that occurred during that time where there was a need to not show episodes or something to that effect.
All right. Whatever it is, if you guys know what it is, let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, Sirach and I are just going to keep talking about it forever and reminiscing about the early 90s. Acid wash jeans, Bell
Yeah.
bottoms were starting to come back. Oh man, what a life! What a life! This kid, that was the first thing I noticed when we saw the kid. I was like, there's one child survivor with a very '90s hairdo. I was like, whoa, that is the '90s. I bet that kid was wearing. Actually, I was going to say, I bet that kid wore a turtleneck, but he actually is wearing a turtleneck in that picture.
Yeah, well, he's wearing a kid version of the of this uniform, which is actually pretty cool. I thought that was
Yeah,
a nice little
cosplay.
touch right there. Nice cosplay. Very good. Uh, and they also did it. And they made it out of a slightly different fabric, so that was cool too. Like they
Mhm.
made it look like a cosplay, which was just funny because you have actual wardrobe department, Star Trek wardrobe, making a cosplay version of the official stuff. That's pretty funny to me in itself.
Yeah. I actually, in my head canon, I imagined that he wanted to put on an actual uniform that looked like him or wanted to replicate a shirt that was, and they're like, no, because then when you're walking down the halls, people might think you're an actual officer. You can't actually be,
Yeah,
it's very different, but kind of like where people, when they go cosplay at Disneyland, they can't look too much like characters because
yeah,
then they'd be impersonating those characters. And if they act like a jerk, then Disneyland's going to get a bad rap. So the best you could do is something called Disney bounding, which is like you wear clothes that are reminiscent of a character. Like rather than wearing Snow White's blue shirt and red dress, for example, you have to just wear a generic blue shirt and red skirt to remind people of it. But anyway, so that's kind of what he did. He was data bounding, I guess is what it would be called. That was nerdy.
which gives me a stupid idea for this episode that I would have liked to that just randomly just comes into my head when you're talking, but it would have been cool to see, and that is them giving this kid an honorary badge that's not really a real badge, but it's a cosplayed version of one,
Mm-hmm.
like a paper mache version or some kind of, it looks like a badge, but it's not really one, but it's just a signatory, just it's something to signify, we accept you, kind of you belong. It's
That'd be
okay.
cute.
We acknowledge your identity, what you're defining as and what you're trying to be right now. So we see you, and to give him kind of a boost. So that would have actually been a cool little thing too, just for Data to kind of say, I made you this or something
Yeah.
to that effect.
It's almost perfect. And then boonk, now it is, or something like that. That'd be cute. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have liked that. But going back to this episode, what we did get right off the top, I was thinking, where is Chief O'Brien? I don't know if you thought the same thing.
Yeah, because there was some ensign, and I was like, "Oh, transporter chief," and in capital letters, I put "not O'Brien."
Me too. I was like, I'm used to O'Brien, and I'm like, O'Brien would have got the guy out. He would have got this kid out. Too bad where's he at? So I kind of missed O'Brien right off top. I'm like,
Yeah.
we have to deal with the second rate transporter guy. If we had our top guy in there, he would have figured out how to beam past the alloys or whatnot.
Yeah, that's the thing is, and obviously it's just where they write in these generic roles, and sometimes Colomini was acting in something else. He's like, "Oh, I'm not available," so they're like, "Okay, well, we'll just put in Joe McGee there," and they might even diminish the role a tiny bit. Like if it's O'Brien, he might try something heroic or whatever. But if he's not available, they're like, okay, then it's just somebody with 2 lines. Just give him 2 lines where he says, "I can't do it. The whatever alloys aren't going to work," and then that's that. We move on.
Yeah,
But we missed him.
I missed him. He's always, missed. But I don't know. To be honest with you,
Uh-oh.
well, here's my thing. And I'm just going to talk about placement of the episode, not necessarily the content, but the placement.
I thought the same.
And it just doesn't seem right to place a back-to-back child episode. We just saw Alexander in the last episode.
With kind of a similar story of like, there's this traumatized kid who needs a hero, and one of the main characters does it. But not just that, not just back to back, but also back to back. And I don't want to say like not as good episodes, but we'll call them filler episodes. Filler alert, like spoiler alert, filler alert. But
filler alert.
Not just, kind of back-to-back filler episodes with very similar feels and themes about a kid, but these are the only 2 episodes for 2.5 months. So you're waiting week to week to week. Thanksgiving passes, Christmas, Hanukkah, all the things, the New Year's Eve, right? Finally, a new episode comes. Oh, it's Alexander and Worf. Okay, fine. Next week, oh, no, it's a rerun. Next week, oh, no, it's a rerun. Next week, okay, new episode, finally. Same story. They're like, oh my God, what's happening to my show, my stories?
I mean, it's ridiculously bad placing. I mean, I don't mind that you have this episode. Just don't place it on the heels of the last episode. We just had a kid who needed some guidance, who felt lost, who needed one of the crew to help him out and find his way back, which is a great story. They also talked about him going to school. And then again, we have this kid who goes back to school, who's dealing with the counselor. It was almost the identical script minus Data. Data played the father in this episode, essentially, right? He was the the father figure, or the parental guidance or guardian, however you want to categorize the relationship. But it's no different than the relationship essentially that Worf has with his son. It's not close, but it's trying to be close. And so they played the same story out from one episode to the next. And I was a little bit disappointed. As a matter of fact, they played out the exact same scenario in which the kid is trapped under a beam.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
well, get this. I'm looking at the next episode.
And it's another kid trapped under a beam?
It says, Commander Riker saves a child from a shuttle accident on Organa 3 and must explain to him to follow his own path.
What's going on here? This is...
I'm just kidding. April Fools. April Fools. It doesn't say that. I actually had to type that out so I wouldn't mess it up reading it. I actually typed out this fake thing so I could look like I was reading it.
Oh, man, you had me going right now. What the hell's going on?
You're like, I am we're going to season 6. That's
we're going to skip past this season.
Skip intro to season 6.
Oh, we could do the last episode of this season. We'll just skip past. Yeah, what the heck's going on? Yeah, I don't know, but this is a back-to-back kid episode, trapped under a beam episode.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to use the exact same scenario where this kid is under a beam and can't be moved. Exactly.
Yeah. You know what's funny is not only it was so similar that it made me reanalyze last week's episode. In other words, when the kid was trapped under the beam and they said, well, we'll just transport him out, my first thought was, why didn't they just do that last week? We just saw that. And then I remember I was like, oh, no, wait, I think they said transporters are not functioning in the episode last week. That's why they had to go. I said, okay, fine. But I'm watching you last week's episode because this week's episode is going to point out something. They're so similar that you can actually analyze last week's episode based on this week.
And last week's episode, we said they should have brought Data with them to lift up the beam.
That's true.
Which Data was in this one.
So they learned from their mistakes.
So casually.
They learned from they brought Data. They were able to beam him out from under the beam.
I mean, it was terribly. So, okay, just quick question. The last episode, who wrote that episode? Remember, it was a writing partner. I think there was a couple that here it is. I have it here in my notes somewhere. Let's see.
Yeah, let's see who could pull it up faster.
Sarah and Stuart Charno. Yeah. It's almost as if they copied this episode and just said, instead of Worf's son, it's this kid that loves that, it's Data's son.
And then they say, like, they say, well, okay, and then a beam goes on them, and the other person's like, we already used a beam last week, and the other one's like, we don't have to change everything, just some things. We change data, we change the kid's name. That's enough. Everything else can be the same. Grow up. It's sci-fi.
Oh my God!
As long as he has shoulder pads, I'm happy. And he did.
He did, yeah. I'm surprised the kid wasn't a Klingon. Like unbelievable. It was a recycled episode. So, like you said, people waited the whole holidays. They waited all this time. They're dead smack in the middle of the season, kind of, and they're thinking, all right, give me some more Star Trek. And especially coming off of, like I said, they had a really good start to this season with
bunch in a row.
Premiere, a bunch in a row. I think a bunch of two-parters, and even the Spock two-parter was just really great.
That was a two Spock. Right?
Yeah, two Spock, Shakur. But yeah, it was Unification Part 1 and 2. So you kind of get your palate wet this season. You're thinking, oh man, this is it. I'm in the best moment ever. And then you get this, and I'm not saying I didn't like this episode.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, coming on the heels of an identical episode, it just, I was thinking, what are we doing here? Like, somebody mix the schedules up a little bit, mix the episodes up. You can't have the same kind of episode play out. So that was a disappointment. Yeah, that was a disappointment. I just, I couldn't figure it out. Now, the mystery about what's happening to the ship and this whole, what happened to his ship and what's happening to their ship.
Yeah.
I was okay. I was okay with that. Like, I was okay with the storyline of, this kid not figuring out what, not being forthcoming with what he knows, about what happened, and they're having to kind of pry it out of him throughout the course of the episode, while also dealing with a problem that exactly consumed them. So I was okay with that storyline. As a matter of fact, the entire storyline I was okay with, because I did like seeing Data being copied. It was actually,
that was fun.
It was funny. It was fun. It was fun to see, mini Data go off, and and him being analyzed to that degree, essentially, by this kid, from the kid's perspective.
And what about the writers calling out Brent Spiner's head twitches, head movements? Because when he read that in the script, he probably felt kind of called out, like, oh, is that noticeable? And they're like, yeah, bro, you didn't know that. You're always like, oh, like, what's his name? Jonathan Frakes does a great impression of Brent Spiner, or of Brent Spiner's Data, and that's all he does. He just does like a little head movement here and there. It's really funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
I like it.
They're calling out his acting choices in a cute way. At this point, 5 seasons in, whatever, we know what he acts like, and it's a lot of fun. But that was really cool. I actually enjoyed, from the mouth of babes.
I mean, yeah, that was funny. It was because he does do that, those little twitches when he's moving his head, which is great because that adds to the character. But I enjoyed that whole back and forth between the boy and Data. I mean, let's not take that away. Like, I enjoyed that part. I thought it was great. Some stylistic choices that I thought I would have done differently if I was Patrick Stewart choosing to direct this episode, and particularly the scene that I thought was a little sloppy.
Oh, which one?
The scene where the boy is getting his hair combed by Data,
and he has like a piece sticking out right there.
Yeah, and if you look closely on Brent Spiner's hands, the makeup is not on his hands, on the palm of his hand.
You could see like moisture. I saw like the wetness on it. Yeah, it was a little. Yeah.
It was sloppily done. Now, if you can see that in the camera, that his hands have no makeup on it, and that it looks like he's sweating on the hands, right? There's moisture there. Then closing in on that would be a bad move, I think. And not only that, but I just didn't like the way the whole tossing with the guy's hair. The way it looked, it didn't feel natural. Didn't feel great.
No,
Look,
it
it
felt
wasn't
abrasive and clunky, right?
abrasive and clunky. Yes,
Yeah, I noticed
and
that too.
yeah, it just was like, and he's got two combs in one in each
Yeah,
hand.
I know. What's that? The whole thing. It's confusing.
It was confusing. You know what I mean? And just to basically do a back comb, which a kid could do by himself. Doesn't need to sit in a barber chair
That's a
to
good
comb
point.
his hair back. So if you're going to do that, my way I would have filmed it is I would have had a kind of a
Luncheon.
I would have closed up on the whole situation, and then moved in on Data, kind of went down across the hands as he's doing it, and then just be in on the boy's face, not really seeing all that messiness of the hair
Hmm.
action, and then pull back again after the messiness is already done, then reveal the hair's back, slick back, and then see, hey, but he did it in a oneer, and it was it just looked a little sloppy. He wanted to see the mirror in the background, and it just didn't look necessarily. I would have had more movement on that camera. It was very
Yep.
stagnant.
Plus, then it gives the kid a good moment. You give him a little bit of a close up, because that
Hmm.
was, they gave him some good moments. So zoom in on him. And I didn't think that the kid was a particularly bad actor. Like, I don't think a close
No,
up would have hurt the episode. Sometimes a close up on a kid, you're just like, ooh, not that great. Child actors are tough. Some are good, some are bad, just like animals. Like they say don't work with kids and animals, because you never know what you're going to get, especially back in the day. But this kid seemed fine. He did. He actually had a couple moments that I actually really liked. Like one was when at the very end when he's like, "Oh, how you doing, Data?" And Data says, "I'm functioning within established parameters." And Data says, "How are you, little Timmy?" And the kid says, "I miss my parents." And I was like, "Oh, that was good." It was a good line because I wasn't expecting it, and it was
hmm
well delivered, and it actually made me react outward. I actually said, "Ah," that was really good.
yeah.
And a couple other moments where the kid would start to act like a kid, but then switch back into being, an android or whatever. Like, I thought he did a great job, to be honest. I thought he was really good.
I thought it was good too. There was also a moment they were eating the ice cream, and he was like, "Yeah, but how does it taste? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is
Mm-hmm.
it good? Like, I'm not asking for the
Saccharides.
the polysaccharides and stuff. He was like,
Yeah,
just he did like the kid stuff, which is like, yeah, but I'm just asking you, how does it taste? Like, is it good?
mm-hmm.
I thought that was a good delivery. I also thought he had a great delivery towards the end, where he had to when he kind of broke down and explained that he felt guilty for pressing the button. That the way he told that story was believable to me. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I thought this kid was good. I thought he held his own, especially when he started to do the robotic stuff and become Data. Like, his responses were great. His delivery, it looked like he studied Data for a second to be able to deliver some of those lines the way he did.
Totally. He was doing an impression of Data.
He was doing it.
I mean, it was pretty clear that's what he was doing, and he was doing it well. And it makes me wonder, like, how much film did he watch of Data to do that? Or was he already a Star Trek fan? Because that was an impression of Data. That wasn't him just being a robot and then Brent giving him a couple hints of like, oh, I do this. No, that kid was doing an impression of Data. Somebody
And it
that's
was great.
clearly he watched him for a while.
And it was great. And the other moment I liked when he delivered is when he was in the mess hall with Troi, and that ice cream walks by,
Oh
and
yeah.
he's like, I'm an android. We don't eat. And then and then he saw the food. He's like, but we do like to taste things.
Yeah. However, I wouldn't mind sampling the local cuisine real quick, just for science. So, speaking of science, everybody, we got to take a quick break, but we will be right back. So stick around. We'll be right back on the Seventh Rule. Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Sirach the Game Changer Lofton.
Hello.
Which game did he change? Stay tuned to find out. All right. It gives us time to make something up. Here are the trivioids of the week. Starbase 514 lost contact with the research vessel Vico. Victorium alloy messes with matter stream in transports. Geordie LaForge was caught in a fire when he was about 5 years old. Timothy doesn't want to pick up his mythology book until his sculpture is done. Lieutenant Commander Data didn't realize his head movements were distracting, and the Enterprise is picking up echoes of itself, reflecting off wave fronts. Man, if I just told somebody those that didn't watch this episode, they'd be like, that sounds like a boring ass episode, what you just read to me. So that's the point of trivioids. They're just trivia. Anyway, so Geordie, that was a good one. When Geordie told that story, he was a 5-year-old. He said, for at least a couple weeks after that, I didn't let my parents out of earshot. That was a really good addition, I thought. It really worked because we all completely understand what he's talking about. And for a while there, I thought they were going to go in the direction of trauma victims or people that saw something really scary or experienced something really traumatic. Oftentimes their memory is really bad. For example, car accident, right? Or robbery. They say, who robbed you? And they're like, the guy was like 6'6". He was huge and menacing. And it's like, not that, or, a car accident. I've heard stories of one driver says a squirrel ran across the road, and another driver says a deer ran across the road. Now they're so different in size, but it all depends on how much it affects you a lot of times. You know what I mean? So that kind of stuff happens all the time. That's why they need sketch artists. That's why banks have a measuring stick taped onto the wall so that you can have a kind of a better, depiction. So I thought they were going to go in the direction of maybe the traumatic experience or the fear or his overactive imagination made him remember it differently and, kind of go in that direction. But they went in a totally different direction as it turned out, which I liked. But anyway, back to Geordie. When he told that story, I just thought it was a really good moment. And it kind of gave us a break from the episode and it explained the character. And I really enjoyed that.
I enjoyed it too. I thought it was a great story. It gives us backstory on a character that we feel like we want to know more about. And it also kind of talked about Geordie before the visor. I think he mentioned it. He said before the first visor. So he's talking about a pre-visor story for him. And I thought there was some poignance to that, like those early memories before the visor. And I actually thought he was going to go into more of the visor tragedy story.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Then I thought he was going to talk about how that affected his life and how it changed him to some degree, or what tools he used to overcome that. But he didn't really go into that, but he did give us some backstory into some of his trauma, which I liked. And I like those moments of where Data and
Jeremy Astor. Oh, sorry, that kid reminded me of Jeremy Astor.
No, I just like the moments. I just like hearing those stories.
Mm-hmm.
They actually mentioned something. They called it Enantiodromia.
Oh yeah, it's called Enantiodromia. I had to look that up too. I was like, is that a real word? I've never heard of it. And I'm not saying I heard every word, but I just want to make sure. The tendency of things to change into their opposites. So that's especially as a supposed governing principle of natural cycles and of psychological development. So that's really interesting. That's something I had not heard of before, but something psychologically that makes, people things tend to turn into its opposite. So this kid went from human to android.
Yeah. And I thought that was a great, because I had never heard the word before either. I had to look it up and found that it's, has its origin with Carl Jung. And so it has this, it has a background and a backstory, the word itself, that Counselor Troi would have an expertise in. And so I thought it was another great use of Counselor Troi in this episode of using her skill set, her knowledge about these kinds of ways people deal with trauma. I thought it was a great use of that.
I thought the same thing, and again for a second episode in a row, actually.
Yeah,
and I want to talk about that. But before we do that, I just looked at just to get a little bit more into this. What is the law of Enantiodromia? The idea is Enantiodromia. This term originally discussed in the writings of Heraclitus is essentially. That's what it says.
Okay. I'm sure that's not how it's pronounced, though.
That's what it says. Heraclitus is essentially this. When things get to their extreme, they turn into their opposite. So it was so hot, it was cold, said nobody ever. But anyway, that's the who knows, how much that really works. But anyway, that's the thing. So Deanna Troi, for the second week in a row, which I think is a record, was actually used properly, was actually used for, what she's supposed to do. Like, she has two things. She's an empath that senses things, and she's a therapist. And in this case, she was mostly therapist, but she also used the empathy. But then, of course, for the millionth episode in a row, they said, well, counselor, what do you sense? Do you sense he's lying? And there was another excuse for what she's like, oh, he's gone through a lot. It's hard to read him.
Yeah.
Every week, it's a different excuse. Oh, there's too much interference. Or, oh, she's had too much trauma. I can't read her. Or, oh, she's hiding something, but I can't tell. Every week, they give this woman a break, please. Let her use her powers.
Yeah. She's always blocked by something. But, obviously she can't be the problem solver all the time, which is okay. But you're right. They do give her excuses for why she can't use certain powers. But at least she was using the therapist side in this. And I thought she was giving good advice to Data about, the the necessity of being there for this boy and how much this boy was kind of attached. I thought that she would use a different terminology, because this terminology defines somebody that turns into the opposite. So this kid obviously wanted to not be human and turn into an android.
Right.
But I thought what I was sensing from that encounter and what we saw when the boy grabbed his hand in the hospital bed, I was sensing a different terminology, which is kind of like imprinting. When when a baby's born and they see their parent, they imprint this parental role on this person, like, this is my parent, right? And so I thought that because this kid lost his parents, he was going to be imprinting Data as his parent, as his new parent, and that's where the idea of hero worship comes from. Where,
very interesting. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, my parents died. He's my hero. He saved my life. He has superhuman powers.
Kind of like transferring, because those feelings.
Yes.
Okay, you know what it is? Kind of like a rebound, right? When somebody breaks up and they're not ready to like fully move on, they haven't fully moved on yet, and then they go to somebody else, and then they start having the same fights with that person that they had with the person before, but their new person's like, what? Why? Because we've all been there before, where somebody's like, you always do this, and I'm like, we've been dating for 3 days. What are you talking about? I don't always do this. We've never had this conversation before. What's going on? So maybe it's something kind of like that, where he just kind of like transferred, because he still needs the parental guidance. He still needs that. Those feelings didn't go away. Those needs didn't go away. Just the focus, the thing that he focuses that emotion on is now gone. I also thought it would have been nice if, let the kid cry a little bit. I couldn't believe that he took it so well. He was just kind of a little sad sometimes, a little like, oh, yeah, I miss my puppy. Like, his parents were dead. and he took it very well. And the same thing with, I think it was the Jeremy Astor kid. They let him just stay in an apartment or whatever, in his quarters by himself. Nobody's watching him. Data comes to visit. He's like, "Oh, hey, come on in. I'm just about to fix myself dinner and wash my clothes." It's the weirdest thing. Don't they have somebody that's going to watch over him or something? What's the protocol here? I feel like there should be one.
I noticed that last week with Worf, when Worf found Alexander in the holodeck using his simulation, and he took the batleth away from him, and he said, "Now go back to your room." And I was like, I know it's a ship, and I know you trust everybody on there, so you don't think there's any murderers and thieves. Except that we always see episodes with a random murderer and thief somewhere on the space station or the
Yep, ain't that the truth?
So I don't know, but so you just send your kid to go back to his room, but you don't walk him back there. You don't lock lock his room. So you're on punishment. You can't
he's
leave.
2 years old according to math.
So you just say, "Hey, go find your way back to the room," and whatever.
Good luck, kid.
Good luck with it. So I don't know. I noticed that there, and then again here in this particular case, this kid's like, I guess the rules, the parenting is different in the future, where it's less hands-on. It's more like
It's more like good luck. It's like last night I saw an iguana giving birth to a baby iguana on a video, not like at my desk or anything. And it's like almost all animals of this world, except for humans and maybe like kangaroos and stuff, where it's like it popped out of the iguana's area and dropped down in this sack, lands on a leaf, and the little baby iguana pulls itself out of its goop and just kind of starts climbing around on leaves out in a tree somewhere. And it's like that's kind of what they're doing in the future. They're like, "Hey, you're born. Let's see what happens."
My job's done.
Yeah. I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette and eat some ice cream. My job is done. Let me know if you need any advice or me to muss up your hair, kid.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no explanation. The Replomat is here, the bathroom's here, there's like nothing, just like, go help yourself. But, we don't see great parenting till we see Captain Cisco. So I guess, he has to pave the way for that particular department. So until then, we're just going to see this, kind of hands off, one-off type episodes. But I did like the use of Counselor Troi. I thought that was great for her. They finally starting to use her character properly, and it was good to see.
Yeah, she had good words of wisdom too. There are a lot of she got some good one-liners. She said the emotions are still there. He just found a new way to suppress it. And, that's what it feels like, is that's what is another thing, that we see all the time, is somebody that's not yet willing to deal with what has happened to them. Oftentimes they will shut down or figure out a way to protect themselves. Humans have to protect themselves. We're very fragile things, especially a kid, especially losing his parents. So I thought, I don't know about this opposite world thing. I was like, okay, that's a really weird and complicated way to just say, like, this kid just had an extremely traumatic event. He's not ready to process it yet, and he's trying to protect himself from feelings because he's only getting bad feelings right now. He's feeling horrible feelings, and he's like, wow, Data doesn't have pain. Of course, I get it. We don't need some Heraclitus guy telling us about that. We completely understand what's going on, and we get it, and we're with you, kid. As long as it takes for you to feel better, I get it.
Yeah.
But so she had a lot of good one-liners, and she was really good. I also thought it was perfect when he came out and she said, "Oh," he said his thing, and she's like, "You sound just like Data," like jokingly. I thought Marina did a very good job performing these lines today when she said, "Oh, you sound just like Data," kind of like, "Oh, that's cute, that's funny." And he says, "Oh, I'm an android," or whatever she said. And then in my mind, I was like, she's going to say, "I see," because what else do you say? And she did exactly that. She said, "I see," as in I understand what's going on. All right, we got work to do. And I thought that the writing was perfect. We knew what to expect there. And she nailed it. And I was very happy with Deanna Troy's character. Poor thing, they've been screwing her over for 100 episodes. They gave her something decent, you know?
The exact same thing to do twice in a row, which is a new thing for her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did like it, and I thought, once again, Star Trek decides to dive into the area of mental health. They did it last episode with the mental health of both Alexander and Worf, talking about Worf's own trauma and upbringing and what he's trying to psychologically recover from. We've seen this story play out many times over and over again. It's literally the pilot episode of Deep Space Nine, Emissaries, talking about Cisco's mental health and
Totally.
the wormhole aliens are saying he's trapped in a time or in a space in which Jennifer dies. So mental health, being affected by trauma, it's a real thing. It's part of the future. It's part of all of our lives. It's part of the human experience. How to recover from it, how to arm yourself with the tools to deal with it, and who's there, who or what is there for you in those moments when you need them. And those stories are great to hear, and always fun to watch play out. That's why I think this episode has value, and I'm not completely like mad about it. I'm only mad about the placement and timing of it. I think it was just poor timing. It's like,
It was almost like a joke. Like, what? What do you
yeah.
guys? Nobody thought, let's switch. But you know what it boils down to is just that they probably were aware of it, but they're like, well, this scheduling or that thing, and they were stuck with it. That's at least I hope that's the case. If they just didn't even notice that they did 2 episodes in a row that were the same, I'd be pretty sad. But I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt of where they're just kind of like, forced to do that, kind of like how they were forced to release these things with 1 episode in 2.5 months, which was kind of strange. But anyway, couple quick hits. One was, did you notice when they came on the ship and they were looking at the dead people, when they first arrived, there was a close-up of somebody's hand and it looked like a piece of glass had sliced through his pinky or something? Did I see that right?
Yeah, it looked pretty cool.
I was, I paused it. I was like, is this what I think I'm looking at? Like, it's kind of gruesome for Star Trek. They're like, let's have a piece of glass slicing right through a pinky and get a close-up on it. That's weird.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I liked that part. It was a good little thing. My thing was like the ship scanners couldn't tell there's a one life form aboard. It's like, again, these scanners have let us down because that could be a life or death thing. Imagine there's a criminal on board that ship that just slaughtered everybody.
Or Deanna Troi couldn't. There's life on that. Isn't that her job? I don't know.
Yeah, something, Captain. I know it says there's no life forms, but I said something. Something like that. I don't know, but Data's fake yawn when he saw the boy yawn.
It's so good.
That was beautiful. That was great. He was like, oh. And Data's the best.
So funny.
He's the best at making it look like he's never done something like that's something he's never done before. So I just love those moments there. And then lastly, I want to say another Data like super shout out moment for me. When Data finally had, when he told the boy, come with me, and towards the end, they're on the bridge and he tells him, come with me. And he walks over to the other panel and they start doing these calculations and stuff. And he says, tell me everything that you heard them say, and then he's doing all these calculations.
That's cool.
It was very cool. And when he comes out of that and he has reached a conclusion that they need to let the shields down, the way he says it to the captain and to Riker. Captain, drop the shields. The way he said it was with so much authority that there wasn't any room to argue.
Mhm.
He wasn't suggesting it. He was demanding it. And I love that delivery on the line, because that the way he demanded it had so much resonance, because at first Riker was like, "Are you kidding me? If we drop the shields, that's a suicide
Yeah,
mission or
Riker,
something,
we have
right?"
15 seconds.
Yeah,
Why are you spitting out these long sentences? We got 15 seconds.
right. So Riker's like, are you kidding me? If we do that, that's a suicide mission." And then Data he says he gives the orders to the captain. He doesn't ask the captain. He tells the captain, "Captain, drop the shields." And you can see Picard is looking at him like, he must know something I don't know.
And he
I
trusts
can't,
him.
and I don't have the time to get the reasons why out of him. So I'm just going to have to trust him.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that moment there too, because it also shows the captain having trust in Data, Data having um, the tenacity to be able to speak up for himself in that moment, and make that order, like resonate the order with enough surety that it wasn't going to be questioned. So I thought all of that was played out very well and well written.
Absolutely. And speaking of demands, it's time to decide who demand of the episode is. Who's demand? The TNG home run of the episode, Sirach Lofton. Who gets the home run today?
Well, thanks to Kerry Schwent too, by the way, for that home run ball.
Yep.
I'm going to say the home run of the episode is this little boy, the guest actor who played Timothy. He did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
I liked his performance. I thought he hit a lot of good notes. He wasn't irritating or annoying.
Right.
He felt his story. He gave me enough to feel compassionate for him. I enjoyed his Data impersonations. And I thought all of the scenes were done well. I just think it's very difficult as a kid to come on the set with a bunch of super great actors like Brent Spiner and Patrick Stewart and all of these people. And so to be able to come in at his age and hold his own and play the role the way he did, I thought that was remarkable. So I'm going to give him the home run.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. I was going to give it to Troi, Deanna Troi, because this is it. She's got a 2-game winning streak. They gave her a couple dumb things to say, or not do, like be able to sense life. But, she was useful. She was important. She was great. She delivered the lines well. So I'm happy for her. I'm sure that for the final 60 plus episodes, it's going to be all great episodes for her from here on. I have faith that is going to happen. But yeah, the kid too. The kid was amazing. Here are the home runs of the day for us. Our pals, Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman, Tom TJ, Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Moeller, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, and Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, a.k.a. Crewman Guy, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde. Yeah, Jake's awesome. Julie Manosfi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner. Hey, let's tell her that it's like an original series episode we're reviewing so that she'll think that she got the wrong episode again. Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Chris Sternick, Greg K., Wickstrom out in Hawaii, Cassandra Gerard, Chuck A., Chris Garrison, of course, Jason M. Oken. Don't call it a comeback. Oken is his name. All right. We'll see you next time. After this free-for-all, we'll be right back with the free-for-all on the 7th rule.
Oh, wow.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th rule with Sirach Lofton. It is time for the free-for-all with Melissa Longo.
Hello.
And her cat, Mochi, perched like a parrot. Jason M. Oken is here. Never saw a cat he didn't love. Anil O. Palat's hanging out in front of the Enterprise D. There he is. Susan V. Gruner's here. Finally, there she is. Carrie Schwent, a.k.a. Crafty Bear, reminds us to be kind, as does Chris McGee. Allison Leach Hyde's wearing an awesome sweatshirt of the 7th Rule, and TJ Jackson Bay's like, Carrie's not the only one that could wear an awesome cruise shirt. From last week. All right, Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
I love the
That's
eyebrow
good.
raises.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 6.3.
Oh.
6.3. 6.4.
Wow.
6.4.
That's some violence. Anybody else have any guesses that doesn't already know?
IMDb guess 7.5. Not a personal one, but an IMDb guess.
Right.
7-1.
7-2, 7-1, 6-3, 6-8, 6. All right, all bets are in. And the answer is, it is Michael Jordan's height. 6'6", everybody.
Okay.
6. Yeah, you know Michael Jordan of the Washington Wizards, of course.
Yeah.
Single-A baseball player. All right.
Number 45, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
He was still 6'6" then?
I mean,
Yeah.
he might not be now, but he was.
He was.
Yeah. I didn't catch any non-appearance mentions. Anybody? What about some kind of or some sort of, like, this kid is some sort of a liar?
Seems like it could be there, but nope.
All right. Easy.
Wow.
Smooth sailing today. Melissa Longo, will you please get us started off on the right track by telling us
Sure.
what you thought of this episode?
Sure. Yeah, I had some thoughts about this episode. Initially, it was a little difficult to get through. I'm not a huge fan of kid episodes in general. They're just not my cup of tea. And that's not to say this kid was bad in this role. He wasn't at all. There was nothing bad really about this. Well, I have a few nitpicks, but but what I did like about this episode is I love that Data interacts so well with children. He doesn't treat them ever as lesser beings. He treats them with the same respect as he treats everyone. And I love this. He's patient with them. He listens to them and is open to hearing what children have to say. So I think he was kind of the perfect partner with this child who, he saved. I also like that, again, we get to see Troi doing what she's meant to do. I love seeing her do her job, and I don't remember if we continue to see this, but I do hope that this trend continues. I also love the way Beverly reacts with children as well. And of course she's a mom, but she's got this way of talking to children, and she has this wonderful bedside manner that you would want from any doctor that is treating you. There are many moments in this episode that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed when Data is brushing the kid's hair and he's like having face painted kids' faces at birthday parties, several birthday parties. You know how tricky this is. But so that was a fun moment. Overall, it was a kind of a mixed bag for me. Not a favorite, not one that I would write home to mom about, but and then nitpicks at Save for Things Left Unsaid, so become a patron and you'll see what those nitpicks are.
Nice. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Melissa P. Longo, IDIC, right? Jason
I
M.
seen-
Oken is here. What's up, Jason? What do you think of this episode?
Well, I think they'll continue the soft underbelly discussion we had last time, and that's really what it is. And they really did spend a lot of money, probably, because this is yet another one of those episodes where it looks like they were trying to pinch pennies. I'll get into some of that later, but it really kind of shows. And you have, I guess, the second episode in a row, which is a kid episode. And if you think about it, this is sort of another take, if you will, on on the bonding that we saw a couple of seasons, a few seasons ago. I mean, to kind of to have any episode that features Brent to any degree is a delight to watch, because Brent is a delight to watch. Again, the story is kind of thin. You get this sort of space phenomenon, MacGuffin, I guess, if you will, that you go through to get to the end of the story. Melissa said Marina gets a lot more to do here, and there's a slew of these episodes where she actually has a lot more to do than she has for a long time. So, I mean, that's really good to see. I mean, at some level, it almost seems like they were giving her things to do in episodes that are not perhaps the greatest, which is, it is what it is. But again, I enjoy watching Brent. I think he's certainly very good in this. Marina's very good in this. It was interesting to see, Patrick's direction on this. It seems pretty simple. There's nothing fancy here. He did give himself some nice close-ups and reaction shots and put himself in the forefront, which is fine. But there's one scene that got lost. I don't know if they shot it and they cut it, or they just decided not to film it. And I'll talk about it later, which I think would have brought the episode up quite a bit in terms of what it was supposed to be. Leave it at that.
Ooh, good tease. Thank you very much, Jason M. Oken. All right, Anil O. Palat, out in Germany, probably, maybe. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, like everybody said, it's kind of an okay episode. I think it is, when I compare to the episode before this, it is a good use of having like a kid character in there, because you kind of see Dave's growth a little bit. You get put in this position of that. I think the kid asks Data, it's like, would you want to give all your superhumanness up to become like mortal, kind of thing? That's what I took away from it, because I think like Data is pretty cool, right? It doesn't age, super smart, super strength, right? But without the feelings, and I think that was kind of the thing they were getting at a little bit. So that was kind of interesting. Whereas Worf starts out as a terrible dad, and I feel like at the end of that episode, he's still, I don't know if he learned anything. Whereas in this one, we get to kind of see. I felt like there was a little bit more story compared to that. And also, they mentioned the Breen and helmets. So I don't know if Deep Space Nine was out at this time, but I thought that was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, really cool. It felt like that was the first mention of the Breen. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe maybe somebody mentioned it like on a star chart or something like that. What was the first, Melissa? It sounds like you got that.
Yeah, I read it in the trivia on IMDb, and it was the second time. The first one was in an episode in 1990.
The Loss.
Yes. The Loss.
Another Troi episode. Cool. Thanks very much, Anil O. Palat and friends. Susan V. Gruner is here fresh off a car show, so she's still buzzing about it. What do you think about this episode?
Well, I think Sirach is wearing the appropriate hat. B for boring.
Oh, that B was a good grade.
Sorry.
Oh,
You
wow.
broke Sirach.
That was good.
Great.
That's why I wore this.
I'm sorry to be
People
so
boring.
negative, but
Oh.
I thought it was boring. The good things that I liked about it was this cute little outfit where he tried to copy Data's uniform. I thought that was cute. Like Melissa pointed out, I liked what they did with Troi. I liked seeing her do her job. I wish that some of these orphan episodes that they would follow up on them and tell us what happened to the kid later, the person. There's more than one of these. There's quite a few. I wrote that I really liked the back and forth between Data and Timothy. As everybody has pointed out already, that Data is, I think Data is pretty cool. But and you see him, Brent Spiner does such a great job in this episode, despite it being boring. You have to admit, I think he gets the, maybe not a home run, but to second base with the episode.
Nice. We'll take it. By the way, you have an awesome looking couch behind you. It's beautiful. So
Oh, I have. Thank you. Yeah, my mom made those blankets that I put on the couch to keep the cat hair off it. There's tribbles on the couch. That's a tribble.
Cute.
That's a
Aw.
tribble.
Oh yeah.
Well, and it keeps the tribble fur off the couch too, those blankets. So that's nice. Thank you very much, Dr. Susan V. Gruner. All right, Carrie Schwent, what do you got for us today?
Well, apologies to Sue, but I love this episode so much. It tugs at every single one of my heartstrings. I love how wonderful Data is with kids. Every single time I see him with kids, it makes me smile. My favorite scenes from Star Trek Insurrection, in fact, are the scenes with him and that little blonde boy, especially at the end. Super cute. He is so gentle with kids, especially with Timothy, just so gentle with them. And if you'd been through what he had, he was probably alone on that ship before the Enterprise got there for minimum a full day by himself, probably terrified. So seeing Data, I would want to take a step outside of myself for a while and pretend to be an android for a while. And yeah, pairing the two of them together was an absolutely brilliant idea. And I love especially the scene where they're painting together. Is art therapy is a very proven way. I don't know a ton about it other than what I learned on, of all things, General Hospital, actually. But yeah, art therapy is a wonderful thing. And you can see in that's why I picked it for the background behind me. I just enjoyed that scene so much. When he fell asleep, Data just quietly sets his stuff down and gently picks up the kid and lays him down. And you don't see it, but I'm positive he took the kid's palette and stuff off of him and put it on the table before he picked up the kid. We just didn't get to see it. Yeah, and all the time they spent together ended up saving the ship, because he's on the bridge when everybody's saying all the things that he remembers from when his ship is destroyed. And if he hadn't spent all that time with Data wouldn't have known what to look for with all the calculations and whatnot. And Data at the end, that serious face when he's telling Picard to drop the shields, priceless. Like he stares him down. Like, I said, drop the shields, do it. And Picard's like, okay, let's do it. And everything is much better. My favorite part of the scene of the episode, though, is Data starting to leave when the kid's building the model. And he just says, you know what? Turns around, finishes the model, just rapid, and props to the kid for standing still like that while they were filming that. That could not have been easy for him to stay there and keep that same smile on his face while they're doing that. I'd love to know more about how they filmed that, because, yeah, really enjoyed it. And like Melissa was, I loved how both Troi and Dr. Crusher to Serve ran with, and Deanna picked it up really pretty quickly when he starts talking like an android, and she said, okay, this is what he needs to do for a while. Let's roll with this and keep going. And of course, we get to see Picard's awesome suede jacket again. I want one of those jackets. It just looks so comfortable. And I've got a couple of things actually about the actor who played Timothy, but I'm going to save that for things left unsaid. It actually has to do a little bit with baseball and the pin that I'm wearing. So Sue, your baseball metaphor actually works a little bit, so I'm going to say that as a little tease. But for the limerick for the episode, I struggle with it a little bit, and then once I stopped thinking about it, I heard Deanna sort of whispering in my ear, and this is what ended up coming out. From trauma, it is hard to recover. We hide from truths we don't want uncovered, but we must find a way to speak what's hard to say so we can move past the things we discover.
Excellent work, as always. Carrie Schwent, a.k.a. Crafty Bear. All right, Allison Leach Hyde is here. Cool sweatshirt, cool dogs, cool everything. What do you got for us today?
I like the episode. It's sweet. It's super low stakes. So it is a little slow moving and full of very sweet moments. And one of my favorites is behind Melissa. Them eating desserts together is just fabulous. Because I like that Data equates taste to emotion, because it is very emotive for us. We do tie emotions to taste. And so that's why he can't like something or not, because he doesn't have emotions. And I think that's really sweet. I've always really liked that, and how that would be for a kid. Like, one of the worst things about being an android is like, I don't get to taste dessert. Like, that's terrible. So that's probably my favorite scene. But I always get a little, like right out of the bat, just a little heart sinking, because it's not O'Brien in Transporter Room 1 or 2 or whatever. We said Transporter Room. I'm like, where's O'Brien? I'm like, oh, no O'Brien. Damn it. So that made me a little sad. And yeah, it's really sweet. There's not too terribly much to say. It's already really been said. I do really love that Data picks up the boy who falls asleep in a chair, because there's nothing better than a kid falling asleep in a chair when they're trying to not fall asleep. No, I'm doing all the things, and falls asleep in his chair, and he doesn't put him to bed or doesn't take him to his room. He just sets him down. Like, nope, I'm not going to freak him out, because when he wakes up, it would be completely new, and he's gone through enough. So I thought that was really well played out. I don't know if they did that intentionally, but as a kid who's definitely fallen asleep in places and woke up other places, it's super disconcerting. So I liked that they did that for the kid, because his life is disconcerting enough. I think my favorite Data line, though, is when he goes, "Do you want a frank evaluation?" He's like, "You did not want a frank evaluation." And I will also question why the teacher called that he's doing sculpture. I'm like, no, he's building. That's not sculpture, because those are pieces he's building together. So I'm like, is that truly sculpture? Because like, I think of, like carving something or using like a big block to make something else out of it. So I'm like, But I do love that they used a lot of art therapy for the kid in this. And that's, was something that was like, I think it was coming more to the forefront in the 90s, and maybe that could have been why they were using it. On a sad note, though, halfway through filming is when the cast found out that Gene Roddenberry died.
Oh.
Yeah. So I do think that may have kind of tempered everyone a little bit, because, he's the creator of the world that we're all hanging out in. So, yeah.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you very much, Allison Leach Hyde. I was a little thrown off by the sculpture thing too, but there was that Greek stuff, and then the definition they had we also covered some more Greek stuff. Chris McGee says perhaps architecture would have been a better term. That's a good one.
Yeah.
TJ Jackson Bay is out in Missouri. What's up, TJ? Good to have you back. What'd you think of this one?
I am functioning within normal parameters. To tack on to what Allison was saying, there are times when I wake up in the same place that I fell asleep, and I still feel disconcerted. And when that happens, when I wake up wondering what day it is and how long I've been there, that's the best sleep. I had some pretty good sleep. And that was one of my favorite scenes too. Not so much the whole scene, but but I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, he's really trying to stick to this android persona. It's like I don't need to go to sleep, and you know what kid hasn't tried to stay up all night and failed spectacularly? It's like a rite of passage, and it was interesting and fun to see him go through that and try to stay awake and really keep up with Data. Um, and so I enjoyed this episode a lot. And as a matter of fact, I watched it more than once in the past couple of days, and it's grown on me in that time. Although I do have some nitpicks, but overall, I really enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed watching um, Timothy go through this journey, and I appreciate it. The way that he acted. The actor's name is Joshua Harris. I thought he'd done a very good job of not only playing a kid, but playing a kid imitating Data. Uh,
Mhm.
and that was fun to watch. But I appreciate his journey and some of the things that the explorations of humanity that he and Data went through. I think Data is most human when he's interacting with kids. We've seen it before in
Mm.
Pen Pals, where he makes friends with the girl and on this planet, and then goes to save her. They violated the Prime Directive to do that because he felt, we're talking about Data, felt so strongly,
Yeah.
about his friendship with this young lady. And I feel like he felt strongly about his friendship with Timothy too. And like Sue, I wish they would follow up on it. We've seen him follow up and continue to write to people he's interacted with in the past. I would have liked to have seen him maintain contact with that young lady in Pen Pals and with Timothy. Uh, and so I guess it remains to be seen if we'll see that in future episodes, since we're in season 5 right now and we got a few more to go. Um, but that said, one of the things that I appreciated most is in the scene, behind Melissa, where they're having the desserts and they're, talking about, the contrast between, what it is to be an android and what it is to be a human. And I appreciate that they support that, he's gonna go through this journey and they know that, eventually, he'll realize he's not an android. But they play along with it and allow him to go through that. And I thought that was just interesting and fun, to watch. But I really appreciate when Data says, "I'm an android that will never change," because Data is acknowledging, the truth of who and what he is, and he's allowing Timothy to explore that for himself. So he doesn't tell Timothy, "You're not an android. You're a human, and that's what you are. You need to act like it." He allows him to discover that for himself, and I think that is special and an approach that is lacking in society, where we try to tell people what they are and put them in a box rather than allowing them to discover it for themselves. I think that the journey that has been most meaningful in my life is finding out who I am for myself, uh, and fitting other people's definition of what I should or should not be. And so I was grateful for that. This isn't the only time that we see, a kid in Star Trek that wants to be, something other than just a human kid. There's a boy in DS9 who wanted to be Klingon on the planet where the Defiant had crashed, and they all, were generations. They were Worf's descendants, and when he grew up, he wanted to go out and live in the wilderness with them. And so I think that's something probably that lots of kids go through, where they want to be something other than just a kid, and it's fun to watch and explore because that's part of how we find out who we actually are. Um, and I think that it's important to go through what we need to go through to find out who we are. And so I hope that's a message that people take away from this episode and episodes like it. I got more to say. I'll talk about it later.
Excellent. Thank you very much, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri. All right. The Christmas. Did you guys see that? That was like a fun little difference in video. That was cool. Did you guys see that? No? Oh,
No.
cool. I wonder if it'll come out in the recording. It was fun. All right, Chris McGee, what do you got for us today, Dark Lord?
Well, as has already been said, we get 2 child-centric episodes back to back, so you can probably imagine how I feel about this episode. At least I enjoy it more than the last one, and can even relate to it. But it is awfully slow-paced. As Sue said, it's boring, with long stretches of silence in it. That said, I do fully understand the gist of the episode, the reason why Timothy chose to emulate Data, burying his emotions because he doesn't want to process them, and fabricating a story to cover an immense amount of guilt for what he thinks he caused. And as has already been mentioned, Data interacts with Timothy perfectly without, thankfully, feeling the need to alter his programming to do so like he did with Jenna in last season's In Theory.
Dear.
I do like that we hear more about Geordie's childhood. Not much, but a little bit more about his childhood, whose past we really haven't learned much about until now, I think. Seeing Timothy, by the way, focusing on building that sculpture or architecture, whatever, when the rest of the class had moved on to other things, reminds me of some neurodivergent behaviors I've heard about and that I myself probably have. In my case, especially as a software engineer, I can totally relate to that need to focus on one thing, as context switching is a pain. We learn in this episode that a user code is necessary to activate the controls on starships to prevent accidental misuse or unauthorized use, presumably. However, this opens up a whole can of questions, not the least of which is how some non-crew members from other episodes were able to activate controls without entering any kind of user code.
Oops.
Yeah. And the memorable quote of the episode, kind of piggybacking off of what TJ was talking about in that 10 forward scene, I would gladly risk feeling bad at times if it also meant that I could taste my dessert.
Beautiful. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Dark Lord Chris McGee, showing us the light. All right, Jake's final take. Sirach Lofton, what's the real reason you got a bee on your head? What do you think of this episode? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I do. But Neil, did you get a chance to speak already? You did. I guess my final thoughts are: last episode, the kid was lying, and this episode, kid doesn't know he's lying, or is telling the truth, kind of. There's some things to take away that I liked. There was some moments I thought Data is kind of shows better parenting skills than Worf naturally does. Like Worf seemed to want to beat up his kid, and at least Data's like, "Hey, let's paint together." Even when the kid grabbed Data's hand when he was on the medical bed, and Data was going to walk away, the look that he gives when he realizes, oh, this kid wants to hold my hand and I can't actually pull my hand away without, it being an issue. So he stands there and he lets him continue to hold his hand until he falls asleep, which the boy fell asleep on him twice in this episode. But the first one was the hold hand episode. And I like that. I like Data's awareness to not just pull away his hand and go to see Riker like he said he was, but to say, oh, this kid needs me in this moment, and I'm going to be there for him. I mean, we've all, as a parent, if you can find yourself in positions where your arm is like the baby's asleep on your arm, and you're like have to slide out of it, and there's these kind of moments where you have to be really quiet and try to move and, negotiate things. So I thought that was really accurate for Data. I thought Data has great instincts as a parent, even though he's not one. Also loved the moment when Dr. Crusher was analyzing the boy and she said all systems seem to check out, and they both said thank you, doctor, at the same time. I thought that was great. It was just a beautiful moment. Good writing for me. And if Data does black hair, he would do well at the beauty salons, because we would just have Data doing braids, cornrows, weaves. I could see
Yes.
Data being a big hit at the beauty
Yes.
salon. You know, he would be a big hit.
Move aside, Mr. Mott.
Yeah. Of course, they had the ship was called the Vico, so you made me think of Vico Anderson, our good friend.
Too.
Well played.
And lastly, there was a moment there when they were downloading the ship's information by some kind of laser, and they were essentially doing a wireless transfer of data. And this hadn't really been done at that time in 1992. We didn't have this kind of wireless data transfer, and I thought just the idea of doing that was kind of innovative. It's a small thing to do, but they're pioneering in a space that's not even there yet, and I thought that was pretty cool. Just that little bit of technology to implement in this episode, and I look for those little bits of technology because they are ahead of the curve on some of those things, a lot of those things. And so, yeah, when I see that, it's really, really great. Yeah, and that's pretty much all I have. I did also like Carrie when Data at the end told Captain to drop the shields. I thought it was very assertive, and it left no room for debate. There wasn't any like, what do you mean? Or why should we? It was just like, I'm not arguing, I'm telling you. Almost like a direct order. So yeah, all of that was great. There were moments, like I said, that I enjoyed about this episode. Would have appreciated it more if it wasn't on the heels of the other kid episode. You can't give me 2 kid episodes in a row. Come on, guys, you know better than that.
This ain't Full House.
Yeah, Rick Berman is asleep at the wheel on this one. You got to mix them up. I don't mind the episode, just put it in a different order. That's all. You can't have them both in the same episode. So, but then I agree with everybody else's points about how the characters were used, and Troi, obviously, you know, having a good use in this and using her skills as a therapist. That was great. And yeah, I mean, I thought the boy did a pretty good job as an actor too. I thought he was pretty believable. You know, he depicted the kind of trauma that you would have in an accurate way for me, and it was believable. I didn't feel like he was over the top or trying to, you know, overplay his performance. I thought it was pretty baseline, pretty standard, and well done on his part. Not easy to also to do the robotic thing as an imitation or of Data. So he actually did that very well too. So yeah, that's about it. That's my final takes.
You see, Eve, Full House is an American. Oh wait, she's not here. All right. Thanks very much to Chris McGee, TJ Jackson, Bayot Missouri, Allison Leach, Hyde, Carrie Schwent, aka Crafty Bear, Susan V. Gruner, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Anil O. Palat, Jason M. Oken, Melissa Longo for myself, Sirach, Melissa, and Mr. Aaron Eisenberg. Thank you all very much for hanging out with us. Chris McGee's being very naughty in the Zoom chat right now.
Oh, wow.
Very tisk, tisk, tisk.
Wow.
It's fantastic.
We will see you next time, everybody. And until then, always remember the 7th rule. It's a something about Mary reference. You can guess.
Uh-oh. What?